Hello, my name is Waylon Lewis, and every week we'll bring you a new podcast with Elephant Journal. Hey friends, this is Waylon, and I'm the founder of Elephant, and every week one of the great joys of my job is I get to bring wonderful people, voices, sometimes famous, sometimes not, to you, and we discuss the issues of the day and also of all time. One of the issues of all time that we're going to talk about today with Lynn Shattuck, one of my favorite writers ever, and probably my favorite writer on Elephant ever, is voice. Is how do we find our voice? How do we share it in a genuine way, consistently, coming back to that genuine voice to be some benefit for this world? Because if writing is just about pretty words, it's kind of irrelevant. But if writing can actually help one another and our world and ourselves, then it's deeply relevant. So we'll get into that and whatever else Lynn would like to touch on. Lynn, we have never met, right?
We have not met in person now.
That's crazy. But we haven't even met on video, right?
I don't think we have. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Isn't
Because how
that
long?
crazy?
So Lynn, maybe introduce yourself and what the heck, how, our connection and whatever else you'd like to say.
Sure. I'm Lynn Shattuck. I'm a writer. I live in Maine. I grew up in Alaska, and I just checked to see when I started writing for Elephant Journal, and it was 2013. So it's been 11 years. Like it's been a chunk of time.
So what were you doing before then? Were you writing? I assume you were. And how did you find Elephant? What on God's holy name or whatever possessed you to write on Elephant? And why are you still doing it?
That's a good question. I don't know that I can actually remember how I found Elephant. I was a mom of 2 young kids at the time, and
they're all grown up now. They're like teenagers.
They're big teenagers. My son was very impressed with when I told him about this with your Instagram following. So
yeah, we have 4 other accounts too. It's like close to, I don't know what it is, 800,000 or something.
Wow,
but
yeah.
Instagram I feel like is sort of dying a slow death thanks to its purchase by Facebook and Meta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zuckerberg what's the opposite of the golden touch? Kind of like squeezes stuff for money and kills the organic algorithm kind of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so you were a young mom with young kids and a young writer, and yeah, what were some of your first experiences that you remember, like writing on Elephant or getting good responses or bad responses or whatever? Like, what was that like to the extent you remember?
It was pretty, I was really fortunate. It felt like a really, like a really safe home for my writing.
Like, what does that mean? Is writing elsewhere not safe?
I wouldn't say that, but I felt really welcomed from the very beginning by the editors, and it was a cozy connection. Yeah.
Do you remember any of the editors you liked working with?
I remember, I think Renee was Renee Picard. Yep. Back in the day. Yeah. And Kat, worked a lot with Kat.
We still work with Kat a little bit, but only part-time. Yeah.
And Lisa Erickson, I think.
Oh yeah, she's still going
shout out to all of them.
Yeah. So, similar to like Michael Pollan and I don't know, maybe Elizabeth Gilbert to a lesser extent. And I could mention a whole other bunch of writers who aren't alive. I feel like your voice it's not so much that your voice is great, it's that your voice is directly there. Like it just feels completely natural, completely you. And that is such a rare experience, and it does make writing great. But we try to teach writing in a way that isn't like trying to make it flowery, and you're not trying to make writing something you think is great. You're trying to just find your own voice. So what is your relationship to your own writing? And was that always the case, that it was just natural for you, or did you have to kind of find your own voice in there?
Yeah, I think to some degree it is natural for me. But I think I think a lot of it is just being really honest.
Uh-huh.
Like I was like a really shy person growing up. I'm still pretty introverted,
Oh, so
but there's something
that's pretty
about
for you.
so this is off.
Yeah. So this is a dream come true. Yeah.
um but there, yeah, I think once I was able to start being really honest on the page, that connected to something. And I think the first piece that really went crazy on Elephant Journal was the postpartum piece, and I was super honest in that.
I don't even
About,
remember.
you don't remember that? Yeah.
I don't remember. I mean, it's so many years ago. We've had so many
It was a
articles.
while ago. Yeah.
We've had
Yeah.
like 60,000 articles or something on elephant,
Wow.
if not
That's
more.
wild.
But I always remember the first one that I remember knocking my socks off was, I forget what it was called, The Perfect Mother, The Good Mother.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't even remember what it was about. I think it was about perfectionism and
Yeah.
sort of your expectations
Yep.
or society's expectations.
Yeah.
But yeah, so good. So how many books have you written, and how many millions of copies have they sold? Because you're such an incredible writer.
Oh, you're sweet. I am, I have not published a book yet. I've been working on, I know, it's, yeah. Believe me, that's nothing compared to the voice inside my head that's like, why haven't you done more by now?
Well,
But
normally I would say don't listen to voices inside your head, but that voice I agree with, and I think you should let that voice outside of your head and have it go find agents or what, however you want to do it. I know we've talked about independent publishing and
yeah.
all that,
Yep.
which is an amazing way to go if you can kind of halfway do it and find
Hmm.
like distributors and all that, because
Yeah.
especially if you can be shy and have billions of TikTok followers or whatever, but
Yeah.
if you're not wanting to like spend years of your life on social,
Yep.
you probably need to have distribution and marketing from a publishing company that believes in
Hmm.
you. Um, One of my favorite writers today who has the same relationship to her voice as you, or hopefully me and other writers I love, is Margaret Rankle. Do you know her?
I
She's
don't. No, I'm gonna write that
a
down then.
columnist on the New York Times and writes mostly about nature,
Mm.
but other things as well. And I always advise people to like check out writers whose voices they like, not just
Hmm.
demographically, and go after their agent or their publisher. So
Okay.
check out Margaret's agent and publisher.
That is a hot tip. Thank you.
Well, yeah, everything's a hot tip. You just have to pursue it.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah, yeah. So being honest, that's simple. I think that's really a great tip, because I would say, like, we teach Elephant Academy, which I
Hmm.
think is open right now for
Hmm.
enrollments, elephantjournal.com/academy. We teach people how to write and in some way write in a way that contributes to their life and
Hmm.
living a genuine life. But people don't write honestly. It's
Yeah.
not that they're dishonest people, but we're so sort of used to, I don't know, trying to put on some fancy outfit when we write
Hmm. Yeah.
instead of just kind of nakedly going out there. So it's funny that you're so boldly raw and vulnerable as a writer, but you describe yourself as
Yeah.
shy. How did that happen? Like, you're not
I think,
shy on the page somehow.
yeah. 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 No, you're right. I think I probably feel more comfortable on the page. Yeah. I was gonna say something and it just floated away.
Oh, that's okay. So comfortable on the page in the sense of like
Hmm.
people can't really see you. You're kind of like, in a way, you're sort of off in your ivory tower, not in a bad way, but
Yeah.
you're kind of behind the words, but the
Yes.
words can directly be raw. Is that sort of how you feel about writing, or
I
is
do
it
feel
different?
that way. Yeah. And I think what I like to read in other people's writing is stuff that makes me feel less alone. Like that's really why I read. And so that is kind of the mission I have when I write is like if there's something that I can share that will help somebody feel less alone, then that's I'm gonna go there.
Huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you do that all the time. The new piece you just put on Elephant, we can put in the link once it's
Sure.
on it in the article. But I forget what it was called, but it was just about like I like half forget it now. Yeah, I read it yesterday, but just about those ordinary, banal moments
Yeah.
as a family,
Yeah.
particularly that. And I remember trying to do this in my life. I usually fail. That you want to like
Mm-hmm.
save as a memory as they're
Mm-hmm.
happening,
Yeah.
right? What
Yep.
was that article about?
That was kind of a silly article. Not a silly article, but it was about this moment in Palm Springs when I was on vacation with my family. And just this weird, I don't know if I can describe it very well. But really, I think let me just talk about where that comes from, maybe instead of trying to tell the story.
Either way.
I think, okay. I think one of the things I love about writing, besides that it can help people feel less alone, is like it's one of the only ways to slow down time.
Mm,
It's one of the only ways to capture a moment. And um, I started kind of just these last few years trying to write down moments like that I do have with my family or my friends or anybody, because it's like there's a lot of like it's this is a hard world to be in for a sensitive person, or even if probably if you're not that sensitive. um and writing, there was something about like if I wrote something down and I really lingered in that moment, I could come back to it. I could come back to it when things were maybe more challenging. And I don't know, it's such a like our world is so fast paced,
yeah.
um, that I've been using that as a way to slow time down a little bit.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
the term. I hate the existence of it, but I love the term attention economy because
Hmm.
like Instagram, Meta, Facebook, TikTok, etc., literally make their money by every second where our eyeballs are paying attention to
Yeah.
each other or whatever. We're
Yep.
making money for them because it's free, we're the product, that whole thing.
Hmm.
So the effect of that is like, I remember the 90s, like spending summers up at this Buddhist retreat center up in the Rockies. And you would see occasional newspapers like Clinton, The World doing something, but they'd be like 3 day old newspapers. And generally, the smell of butterscotch in a pine tree, or,
Mm.
the incredible skies and the clouds, they're so big up in the Rockies somehow, or, you know, the sounds of, people running around in this mountain valley across the valley. Like that was the fabric of your daily
Yeah.
life, not,
Yeah.
and this is
Yeah.
how it is now in 2024. I don't
Yeah.
think young people even know because is normalized, but this is
Yeah.
literally like there's like 5 things per second. And if anyone
Yeah.
was annoyed by what I was just doing, that's what's happening times five. I've been sick for the last week, and
Mm.
instead of enjoying being slowing down and all that, I swear to God, I've been working, I swear to God, I've been online like, I don't know, 11 hours a day,
Yep.
like 8 hours for work. And then at night I relax by watching a movie or something. Um, so I don't actually feel like I'm living life. And my girlfriend, she reads books constantly, and it's something I really admire. I'm like, oh yeah, books.
Mm.
Like I grew up reading books and being a nerd, and I read everything.
Yeah.
Um, and I miss that, but not in a way that my addiction to my work and my,
Hmm.
all that allows me to break that cycle. So I
Hmm.
think what you're talking about is so valuable when you write. And the cool thing about writing is I could write about, social media or screen addiction
Hmm.
is particularly hard for me because even though I have great boundaries around it,
Hmm.
I don't like to be addicted to anything.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is my work. So
Right.
it's like, it's really hard. It's a little bit like being like addicted to ice cream and being like an ice cream
Hmm.
maker.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, slowing down time. I love that. That could be a title
Mm.
for your first book. Yeah, because it's like vignettes where you're like, oh, okay, something happened here.
Yeah.
Like you would never remember the glasses and the lens rolling around, or
Exactly. Yeah.
the meaning or the feeling around that, like how you were doing as a family and as a mom
Yeah.
in 5
Yeah,
years. But
exactly.
since you wrote it, even
Hmm.
without reading it, you'll remember that
Yeah.
forever. Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind
Yeah.
of came out. I started this tradition with my kids where I will write them a birthday letter every year. And so that's like another time where I just sit down and I have to stop and think like of all the things that we did over the years and all the thing, all the experiences we had, what sports did they play, who were their friends. And um, I think that was kind of the start of using writing as like a tool to savor things and to slow down time and to capture these moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope your kids know you're one of in my view, and I've known, tens of thousands of writers, you're one of the best writers in America.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
oh, come on. You totally are. Like, again, the promotion economy around writing, which has been, publishing has been gutted by Amazon. So
Yeah.
publishers don't have marketing budgets. So they only market blockbusters, which means Harry Potter, the blockbuster of all blockbusters, which was written on napkins in a cafe, never would have been published
Mm,
in today,
yeah.
post Amazon.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, it's no measure of how amazing you are that someone hasn't found you and gobbled you up yet. But hopefully that'll happen, or you'll figure out how to publish it
Yeah.
on your own halfway,
Yeah.
And
I appreciate
yeah, um, and I'm happy to help, even though I've failed you so far. So,
it. You haven't failed me. Waylon, you were the first person who really, who, who first of all paid me for my writing and who really supported me and encouraged me in the way that you have. I mean, I've had writing teachers and stuff like that, but in
yeah,
terms of a publisher or a home for my writing, yeah. So
yeah.
thank you for that.
Oh, you bet. Of course. Um, so, yeah. So, what else would you like to share? Because for me, it's all about voice. But is
Mm.
there another angle that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I guess I could talk a little bit about sibling loss. That's something I've written about a lot and continue to write about. My only brother died when I was 24 and he was 21. And at the time, it was 1999. Amazon was like a brand new, you know, website only for books at the time, and there was nothing on the topic at all. There were like more books on losing a pet turtle, for example, than losing a brother or sister. And so that I think that became kind of an engine for me to move forward and to write about that topic. And I've had a lot of positive responses from people thanking me for that. And I'm
Yeah, it's a
actually
particular kind of wound, right?
it it really is. Yeah, there's this weird thing that happens where I suppose it's because we as a culture like we have a acknowledgement that losing a child is like the worst thing that can happen. And I think it's because like siblings just kind of get lost in that hierarchy.
Yeah,
Um,
like, oh, that's horrible, of course, but
but please take
like,
care of your parents.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and your romantic partner, there's obviously a place from literature and
Hmm.
stories throughout time
Yeah.
immemorial about what, the power of losing a partner. But yeah, the brother and sister, and I've had dear friends, Ashley, she lost her brother, and yeah, that is this, it's sort of like a wound, like it never really felt like it closed. Or
Mm-hmm. I would say that's true because there's like the sibling relationship is one of those few that you expect to have your whole life. So
right.
no, it's not like it was when I was 24. Like I've built this life that, I couldn't have imagined back then. And like when we lost my dad, like I wanted my brother to be there. Of course I did. So I think because it's one of those unique relationships where you are supposed to get a lifetime with someone, that's part of what makes it a really unique wound.
So
Um,
how has writing been valuable or helpful around that?
I think I write to process. I think I write to understand. I write to make meaning. Um,
Love that.
yeah, that, you know, and more recently, I've been working on with my partner Allison co-editing a anthology on sibling loss.
Oh,
So
cool.
just the power of all those stories together in one place
Wow.
has been
I
really,
love that.
yeah, yeah, and creating a community around
Yeah.
it.
And then that's so helpful. Imagine if back in '99
Mm,
or whatever you had had that
yeah,
anthology, right? I
yeah,
think
that's yeah.
that's what's so magic about writing is you can read stories that are totally different by different people, different,
Hmm.
but there's something that connects, and it's you process while reading it, not just
Yeah,
writing it,
yeah,
which is magic enough,
yeah.
but just by reading. I remember I always say, like, this is like the teenage boy version, but I read Town and Country by Town and the City by Jack Kerouac, which was not even one of his great novels. It was an early
Mm,
novel, and it was written in a more formal way
hmm.
before he kind of discovered his stream of consciousness stuff. And he wrote it, but just about loneliness and broken heart and high
Hmm.
school crush, all that. And I
Yeah.
read it, and I was like totally brokenhearted from my first love, like every
Mm,
day for years. And I read it, and I was like, oh my god, it was like a revelatory. I think when you're a new being on the planet, you don't realize that other people, you realize it intellectually, but
hmm.
not emotionally, that other people go through exactly what you're going through,
Yeah.
and and just not feeling alone, like you said about your brother
Hmm.
or losing
Hmm.
your brother, somehow is so powerful just in and of itself.
Mm. Yeah, and I think we're the same age, right? Are you almost 50 as well?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
49. Yeah,
Yeah, same. I think when we grew up in the 70s and 80s, and this might be different because I know you had a different upbringing than I did. But we didn't have language for feelings
mm,
and mental health and anxiety and all the things that we actually have a language for
yeah,
now. So I wonder if it's the same for people growing up today I wonder if that connection that we have when we read something that resonates and makes us feel less alone. I wonder if that's as powerful as it's ever been or not as much.
yeah. That's a great question. I feel like nothing is as powerful if your attention is split a million different
That
ways,
is true.
and that's not
Yeah.
just young people. That's
That's
anyone
all
who
of us.
who
Yeah.
is who is a victim of you know phones and TVs and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was reading, some teacher was talking about taking their class, the children, on a field trip, and they went to the Met, and they went to Yankee Stadium, and they went to all these different places around New
Mm,
York. And they were like, normally we have a no phone policy. People go to class, we take their phones in the beginning of the day, we give them back at the end of the day. But because it was a field trip, they were allowed to have their phones.
mm,
And they were like, the teacher was like, we might as well not have gone anywhere. We could have just put them into a backyard of some house, said, be on your phones for the next 6 hours, have a good time. And that's exact same thing would have happened. They were like,
yeah.
we were at Yankee Stadium, no one even looked up.
Yep.
So, that's not old man yelling at the
Hmm.
clouds. That's happening to all of us.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to have an emotional catharsis if your attention is split.
Yeah.
Now, again, nothing is evil about social media. You could have someone on TikTok talking about losing their brother or
Right.
sister or broken heart or whatever, and have that exact powerful catharsis and processing. And it's so easy to be black and white about this stuff,
It
but
is. Yeah.
again, the companies behind these platforms are trying to make money off of
Mm,
making us insane and extremist. um, so that's the problem.
right.
uh,
Yeah.
and I have all the mindfulness tools of being Buddhist and all that, and I'm still, it's a daily fight.
Hmm. Yeah, that dopamine rush is powerful.
Yeah, and a lot of it's great, but I recently discovered a Chrome, for people who use Chrome, a Chrome plugin where you can limit the time on specific sites,
Yeah.
and it's like nuclear level. Like, when it shuts you down, you cannot
Oh,
open it
wow.
up. Like, the screen limits on my phone, which I've had for years, are kind of meaningless. Like, they'll say, "Oh, you're out of time on Instagram." You just be like, 1 minute more, 15 minutes more, 1 hour,
Yep.
rest of the day more. But this thing, like, shuts it off. And every single time it happens, I have a moment of like, what was I just doing? That I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for being shut down.
Mm, yeah.
I
Has
love
that
it.
affected your writing life at all? Like that attention kind of fracturing of our attention that has happened?
Uh, I just discovered this app a week ago, but yeah, it'll help everything.
Hmm.
In the sense that I'm not no longer spending. So like, I love Reddit. And there's so many helpful communities I'm a part of. But I'll just scroll Reddit like a gold seeker, like looking for nuggets of gold and panning the river. And for hours, like, what are you doing? And I used to do it because I could then create articles and blah, blah, blah out of that for Elephant. But, or, it's just good news. And every day Reddit is like 20% so valuable and 80% waste of time.
Yeah.
So just killing that time habit is so helpful and will help me. I don't know if you or other writers here have ever used like distraction stuff around writing,
Mm.
but there's that free write. Do you know free write?
I don't
It's like
know.
a typewriter that you can buy
Okay.
that is a computer that you can upload your writing to Google Docs or whatever you want when you're done.
Yeah.
But there's nothing else. It's just a writing machine. There's no
Okay.
graphics. There's no tools of any kind. And the idea is, you can take it, go to the library or whatever. Like in my
Mhm.
house, I still have my laptop. So you have to like leave.
Right.
And then you just write. You have nothing else you can do with it.
Yeah.
And then you
Hmm.
can upload everything. So I'm really curious about that stuff. And you can buy used ones. It's called Free Write.
Yeah.
New Yorker did a huge article on free write machines and distraction devices years ago that I thought was very, very helpful and inspiring. So that's worth reading. I mean, I'm relatively successful at writing just because it's part of my job.
Yeah.
I mean, doing the writing,
Mhm.
whether it's successful, good writing or not, is for others to judge. But um, yeah, how about you? What's your process of doing it without being wildly distracted?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard, and I have ADHD, so that
Oh,
is also
God.
yeah. Or maybe we just all do at this point. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think sort of that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I do set a timer for myself. Like I'll sit down and write for 45 minutes. And there's something about setting the timer that just makes me know, like, okay, you don't have to say if it's miserable, because like we get this idea that writing is going to be this miserable thing, or I get that idea
Huh.
sometimes if I'm resisting it, right? Like if I don't know what I want to say on the page, or there's some sort of resistance there. There's like a little bit of dread. So setting the timer lets me know that I have like an endpoint.
Yeah,
So I don't have to sit in writing prison
I
forever
like
if
that.
it's
So
awful.
do you do the timer on an actual like alarm clock or on your like phone?
I use my phone. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yep.
And do you get rid of like internet and your phone near you or not?
I don't. I
It's
don't.
not
And sometimes it's a problem, but not all the
okay.
time. Yeah. I have to kind of, I have to be mindful to
Yeah,
not that I'm not like all of a sudden over on, you know, Gmail or something.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
yep.
Yeah. So many times I'm like, I need to look up 2 or 3 things, and there it's helpful.
Yes.
And then an hour later, you're still there, and you're like looking at like Victorians on Zillow or something. You're like,
Yeah.
jeez.
Yep. That went awry.
Zillow is one of the sites I shut down with that new plugin. It's great. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, ADHD is so interesting because it is one of those things that is a thing, but at the same time, societally, I think we've been encouraged to all have it now
Hmm. Yeah.
by the attention economy.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. The interesting thing about that, some people, if people are not knowledgeable about ADHD, is that there's also this, like, if you're interested in something, there is a hyper focus. There is an ability to like obsess on certain subjects for hours.
Yeah,
because it's what it is it's like it's an interest based. Your brain is interest based. So if it's something that catches my interest, I can live there.
I definitely, yeah, I have so little respect for the, just speaking personally, for the extreme focus
Mm,
as well as the extreme distraction, because to me they're same part of the same exact
mm,
mechanism, which is, you can call it ADHD, or like from a Buddhist point of view, it's just like monkey mind. Like monkey
yeah,
mind is happy to obsess about one thing
yeah,
forever,
that
or
is true.
it's happy to obsess about a million things, and both have this quality of no internal strength,
Yeah,
no real like, oh, I want to focus on this,
yeah.
and
It's kind of
I,
disembodied. Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
just part of like our kind of obsessive bouncing around.
Hmm.
But yeah, but I guess if your obsessive focus landed you on your writing or something that you wanted, that could be
It
helpful.
can sometimes be
Yeah,
helpful. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, uh, what else? What would your kids or family want me to ask about your writing?
Oh my goodness. That's a good question. I don't know.
What do you think? Would they be like, do they read your writing?
I don't think so. And that's a funny thing that's changed like as they've gotten when they were little, I think I wrote a lot about my kids and I wasn't really thinking about them as having like private identities, whereas now I wouldn't write about one of them unless I had permission and made sure that I went over it with them because
Yeah,
they're big sentient teenagers.
yeah, that's
So
funny.
that has changed. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a sweatshirt that says something like, "Be careful, or you'll end up in my novel."
Yes.
I'm more of that school where, like, if you are hanging out with me,
Yeah.
you need to understand it's sort of like a prenup of being a friend with a writer. It's a writer's prenup, which
Yeah.
is like, I may be your mom and all that, but it comes secondary to the fact that this is my life and my experience. And I
Mm,
will write about you or anyone or anything at any time. And I will try to do so fairly and respectfully and
yeah.
vaguely when possible. But, as Margaret Atwood said, like, if you didn't want to be written about, you should have behaved better.
Yes, that's true. Although it is tricky if it's your children because there's they didn't kind of sign up for that. Um, I don't know. Although my son just texted me saying that he has permission and he wants to know how I come up with ideas. So that was very sweet.
Yeah, I think that's where me being 49, I just have like a little bit of a, like, yeah, you didn't sign up for it because you your permission is not
Yeah.
required. Like, it's your experience.
Yeah.
It is incumbent on you as the writer or any writer to be honest and to be fair and to be vague whenever
Yeah.
possible about other people. Like, I wrote a whole book about relationships,
Hmm.
and I deliberately tried to. Did you read things I would like to do with you?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful.
So I don't know if I accomplished this, but I tried to, like, I literally took parts about one relationship and put it in a different pair. Like,
Mm,
I tried to
mhm.
just make it, like, if you look for hair color in that book, it's super rare.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, there's one or two sections where it's about one person that's obvious, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to like start drama or be unfair to people.
Hmm.
Uh, but my experience is mine, and
Hmm.
your experience is yours, and their experience is theirs.
Yeah.
And if they want to, offer a different perspective, they can write their own book.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think I am a people pleaser and I'm working on that aspect.
Yeah, and I mean,
Of,
you could be right. I'm not saying I'm right
mm,
at all. And I think writing about people pleasing would be a great,
yeah.
that's the cool thing about writing is you have this magic wand to write about anything
Yes.
that
Yeah. It's
that,
true. Yeah.
that is confusing to you. And the cool thing is you don't have to have an answer.
Right.
You
Right.
just process.
Yeah. And a lot of times that is, I write sometimes for an audience, but I also write just for myself, just to figure stuff out because that's how I kind of come to understand things, I guess.
I'm interested if anyone out there has opinions about writing about people in your life. You know, there's always that
Mm.
conflict. Like right now, this is in a more toxic way where I understand there being issues, but the the creator of Baby Reindeer, which I haven't watched on Netflix, he wrote about this lady who stalked him and all that. And it's
Mm.
based on true life events.
Okay.
And now the lady is coming forward and saying, you know, yeah, I knew him. Yeah, I did this and that, but I didn't stalk him. I didn't, like, these elements of the story aren't true.
Mm.
I just, it, you know, I wonder how people feel about, like, do you have ethical permission from the
Mm.
universe to write about your own life and experiences in a fair, honest, and when you can, vague and non-dramatic way? Like when I write about
Yeah.
stuff, I'm not trying to hurt other people,
Mm-hmm.
tell my side of the story, or settle differences, but I am trying to share that magical kind of process of catharsis and my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I mean, isn't that kind of what we're doing in life anyways, is we're all kind of living our, our stories through the filters that we have because of our childhoods or the world we live in or the way our bodies work or whatever our filters are, we're kind of like doing that in real life anyways. So if you look at it as an extension of that,
Yeah,
um, and with kind of with the permission to like what you just said, like my point of view might be wrong, but it's my point of view. Like that's my story that I'm telling at this particular time. You
yeah,
don't have to agree with it.
yeah. Molly said, you know, she's been struggling to write about her family and some of their
Hmm.
health issues, and um, yeah, to me, the answer to that kind of stuff is to be like
Hmm.
vague. Like instead of naming your family people and like aunt, uncle, you know, grandpa, you don't need to name what person they are, let alone
Hmm.
the name, let alone where they live, but be very specific about the experiences that are happening.
Yeah.
And then you can get all that juicy catharsis out without kind of, like, the point of writing isn't to call people out or embarrass them.
Yep.
But I do think the only place where I disagree kind of with you, Lynn, is, and not that you have a solid opinion or I have a solid opinion, I again could be wrong, but is that you do have a right to your experience and to sharing that.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think in the same way, like, I just agree with that sweatshirt I have. Like, be careful, you'll end up in my writing, you know, my
Yeah.
novel. It's humorous, but it's delicate and it's serious. And if you write it, I always write things in view of, like, if they were to read
Hmm.
this, would they feel this was fair?
Mm.
And that could include an ex, that could
Hmm.
include anyone, you know. They don't
Yeah.
have to be happy with it,
Yep.
but would they feel like it's
It's
fair?
fair. Yeah, no, that's a good
Yeah.
point. Is it Anne Lamott that said that if you didn't want me to write about you, or if you didn't want me to write about you, you should have treated me better, I think.
There you go. I said
Yeah.
Margaret Atwood. Yeah, it's
Okay, maybe it
Lamont.
was
There
Margaret
you go.
Atwood.
No, it's Lamont. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah. If you didn't, yeah, and I think hers is funny and sort of in a negative way,
Hmm.
but I
Yeah,
think 99% of the time you're not writing about your children to, like, be negative. You're not
right.
saying you behave badly, therefore I'm going to write about you. It's
Right.
more like you're part of the difficult experience of being human for me,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, which is beautiful and transcendent and challenging and banal.
Hmm.
And I'm going to write about that experience, and you're part of it.
Yeah.
And maybe I can be non-specific about your gender, about your how old you are, about what you look like. So it's like a little bit vague, but I'm going to be specific about, oh, when we had that delightful experience or that sad experience or that conflict, what did it, what arose for me?
Yeah.
And that I think you
Yep.
have a right to.
I'm gonna I'm gonna ponder on that. I think you've got a really good point. And I'm gonna look at my people pleasing and see how much of that is tied up into that. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting.
And people ultimately, I know this is a radical statement for a people pleaser, but people ultimately don't have to
Yeah.
agree with you. You
Yeah,
just have to, like, know that you're coming from a good place.
that's true.
And I think,
Yeah.
there's a long tradition, like Kerouac wrote
Hmm.
autobiographical novels all the time. You could be inspired by reading one of those because he would change the names in every single one.
Yeah.
Gary Snyder was Jaffe Ryder. Like, it was understandable kind of, but it was
Yeah.
different. And that freed him up too, to write them as if they were novels. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that can be liberating for you too. So if you're writing about,
Absolutely.
I don't know your kids, but if you're writing about your daughter who's blonde and 12, instead it's your son who has brown hair and is 14. Like, if the age and the hair color doesn't and the gender doesn't matter to the
Yeah.
story, change stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. And besides, to bring it back to the attention economy, it's not going to matter in 5 minutes anyways, all that much, right?
Yeah. I think photos are a
Absolutely.
little bit like, I'm actually more concerned about photos on social,
Mm,
because those I could see being weird. But I think,
yeah.
we have the gift of having been brought up when, like, I mean, even watching an 80s movie, they have like naked children running around
Yeah.
in family situations, which is totally normal,
Yep.
but it's on in a movie. Now that would be considered, like, because we're so aware of creepy people.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, more is just change. Anyway, what are we talking
True.
about?
We're talking about creepy people now, and yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about being 49.
For-
Yeah, well, Lynn, you're a wonderful writer.
oh, thank you, Waylon.
Thank you. You've done great on a very public forum, and I would welcome you back anytime.
Oh, thank you so much.
Let's connect one on one about getting that book to
I
happen.
would love
And
that.
I mean, you already have plenty of chapters.
I do.
I would definitely not
Definitely do.
overthink it. Just plop all your amazing articles in one place and call it a book.
All right. Let's talk about it.
All right,
Okay. Thank you so
Lynn.
much, Waylon. I hope you feel better too. I hope you have a
Yeah,
full recovery soon.
love to you and your family, and
Thanks.
keep writing on Elephant. And thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.